You're not going to believe this, but the former president who staked his entire reputation on winning has managed to continue his losing streak. Trump had attempted for a fourth time to throw out the E. Jean Carroll defamation case that's headed to trial in January, arguing this time that he has absolute presidential immunity. Judge Kaplan swatted down Trump's argument, noting that this argument is no different from his previous arguments, all of which the court had rejected, and ultimately called the appeal frivolous. This January trial will come in the aftermath of Trump's first trial, where E. Jean Carroll was awarded $5 million after Trump was found liable of abuse and defamation. The difference between that trial and this upcoming trial is that this one involves defamatory comments about Carroll that Trump made while he was president. Trump had previously argued that he was protected from litigation for those comments under this baffling assertion that everything he did while in office was within the scope of his duties as president, even apparently attacking his own abuse victim. Under Merrick Garland, the DOJ eventually reversed that decision because clearly defaming E. Jean Carroll was not within the scope of Donald Trump's presidential duties. And the fact that this was even ever a question goes to show what a disaster Bill Barr's Department of Justice was. In fact, when Trump heard the news about the DOJ that they would be withdrawing from this case, which effectively signaled that he would lose millions more dollars, he lashed out on Truth Social, writing, "The DOJ will not defend me in the E. Jean Carroll civil case, which is all part of the political witch hunt, lawyered up by a political operative who I just beat in another case, financed by a big political funder, and judged by a Clinton appointee who truly hates Trump. The statements that I made about Carroll are all true. I have no idea who she is, what she looks like, or anything about her. The net result of this horrible injustice, where a completely unknown to me woman made up a ridiculous story, wrote it in a book to increase publicity and sales. I correctly disputed the story and got sued for defamation, whereupon a hostile judge and jury shockingly awarded a woman who I don't know, have never known, and don't want to know $5 million. We are strongly appealing this travesty of justice." And so because the DOJ won't be defending Trump in this upcoming defamation trial, it'll be up to Trump and his team to defend him, which is a tall order considering, as I mentioned earlier, he was already found liable once for defamation, and the comments at issue in this second trial are virtually identical. And of course, the case was also recently amended to include comments that Trump made during a CNN town hall, which will not only bolster Carroll's already airtight case against him, but will almost assure that the damages she's awarded will be even higher.
Because what's happening is they're doing this for election interference. This woman, I don't know her. I never met her. I have no idea who she is. I had a picture taken years ago with her and her husband, nice guy, John Johnson. He was a newscaster, very nice man. She called him an ape. Happens to be African American. Called him an ape. The judge wouldn't allow us to put that in. Her dog or her cat was named Vagina. The judge wouldn't allow to put that in. All of these things, but with her, they can put in anything. Access, Hollywood.
This was a jury of 9 people who found you liable of sexual abuse. Do you think that will deter women from voting for you?
No, I don't think so, because I think the whole thing, just so you understand, ready? I never met this woman. I never saw this woman. This woman said, I met her at the front door of Bergdorf Goodman, which I rarely go into other than for a couple of charities. I met her in the front door. She was about 60 years old, and this is like 22, 23 years ago. I met her in the front door of Bergdorf Goodman. I was immediately attracted to her, and she was immediately attracted to me. And we had this great chemistry. We're walking into a crowded department store. We had this great chemistry, and a few minutes later, we end up in a room, a dressing room of Bergdorf Goodman, right near the cash register. And then she found out there were locks on the door. So she said, I found one that was open. She found one. She learned this at trial. She found one that was open. What kind of a woman meets somebody and brings them up, and within minutes, you're playing hanky-panky in a dressing room, okay? I don't know if she was married then or not. John Johnson, I feel sorry for you, John Johnson.
Mr. President, can I...
And of course, after this aired, Carroll's team amended their court filing, saying, quote, "This conduct supports a very substantial punitive damages award in Carroll's favor, both to punish Trump, to deter him from engaging in future defamation, and to deter others from doing the same." And that's the part that Trump doesn't seem to grasp. The whole point of punitive damages that Trump was forced to pay in the initial defamation case was to punish him and deter him from future defamation. And yet, what did Trump do within 24 hours of getting hit with the verdict? He engaged in more defamation. And what did he do again on Truth Social? More defamation still. Which is why E. Jean Carroll is now basically saying, clearly Donald Trump has learned nothing from those inadequate punitive damages imposed in the first trial, so clearly we have to increase that amount. And while we don't know yet what number shall be awarded in the end, the goal is obviously to reach a point where the punishment is felt enough to actually deter Trump from defaming anyone in the future. And so while we don't know how high that number has to go up to finally make Trump notice, it certainly is going to be pretty high. And by the way, that is literally how the system works. As violations accumulate, the punishments become more severe. If you go to court with no priors, for example, you might get off with a slap on the wrist. But if you go to court with a whole rap sheet, like Donald Trump is doing, including those 91 other charges, that's probably taken into account, and the consequences are generally worse. Donald Trump is proving to the court in real time that he is not willing to take the law seriously, that he doesn't think it applies to him. And so the onus will be on the court to determine a punishment that reaches a level that might actually make the guy pay attention. Their job is to keep slapping him with punishments until he finally recognizes that he is not above the law. And that's a point I discussed with former federal prosecutor Glenn Kirshner as part of our YouTube-only legal series, The Legal Breakdown.
But I really think this one is just going to be about the damages, how much Donald Trump should be made to pay. I think E. Jean Carroll has upped the ask to $10 million, if I'm not mistaken. And I could easily see the jury doubling the $5 million verdict they awarded E. Jean Carroll in the last trial. Why? Because after the jury handed down its verdict in favor of E. Jean Carroll, Donald Trump ran out to the cameras and did it all over again, defamed her all over again. Nobody will ever accuse Donald Trump of learning from his mistakes.
Yeah, well, someone should let Susan Collins know. Glenn, given the fact that Trump did already lose that first defamation case, is there any plausible deniability he has here? Is there any defense that he has here that could result in this case being any different for him?
Zero. The only thing he can do is play for a hung jury, try to pick off a juror or two, hang the jury, and then force it to a retrial. But he has no defense on the facts or the law.
And it's not just the money. It's also the fact that Trump is making a mockery of the legal system by so quickly and publicly discarding these verdicts. E. Jean Carroll's attorney, Roberta Kaplan, said, "It makes a mockery of the jury verdict and our justice system if he can just keep on repeating the same defamatory statements over and over again." And of course, it isn't just this case where Trump has displayed his disdain for that legal system. The fact that he's contending with 4 indictments and 91 charges goes to show that that same legal system is now operating to finally hold him to account for those very crimes. Which, by the way, is a pretty clear testament as to how the leader of the self-proclaimed Law and Order Party actually feels about law and order. So at this point, it's almost certain that we'll see more attempts by Trump to delay or even throw out this trial, but just as certain is that his efforts to avoid accountability will fail. And just like in Manhattan, just like in Florida, just like in Washington, D.C., just like in Fulton County, Georgia, Trump will eventually be forced to show up in court and be held accountable for his own actions. He was perfectly content to do the crime while he was soaking up the applause and the fundraising dollars and the sycophantic adulation. Now comes the part where he pays for it, pun fully intended. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to the channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.